Hello. So I'm going to do a different video. Um, I recently acquired um, the WildWood Tarot. Now, there's an interesting story to this deck because a few years back, when I wanted to bring in some decks um, into my divinatory practice, um, I saw a lot of talk about the WildWood Tarot. But at that time, um, I love nature, animal inspired uh, imagery and decks, and outside here in my backyard. But for some reason, this particular deck a few years ago did not fully enthrall me. And so when I work with decks, they have to enrapture me, and they have to really stand out. Um so that time is now with this deck. So I came across a few reviews of the WildWood Tarot because we just had summer solstice, and reading how this deck is very much influenced by the wheel of the year. And I've been doing my seasonal Sabbats for the equinox and solstice, and the greater Sabbats as Beltane and Imbal and Lammas, Mabon, so on and so forth. I figure as I'm starting to explore the wheel of the year and its energies and bring it into the tarot, that this would be the time to get the WildWood Tarot. So jumping back, I was going through a few reviews on YouTube, and I wanted to make sure that the feelings I was starting to feel towards this deck were going to be a spiritual investment for me, and it was. So I have the deck, and that just kicked everything for me for this summer season. I've been doing a lot of focus on the decans and in the tarot, the planets, the signs, for almost a year. I'm almost done going through the entire decan for the year in the next couple of months. But I wanted to take a break. I will still be doing my decan readings, but I want to step away a little bit from having the astrology influence in my readings. So with summer being here, and now animals are fully out in their environment, and I'm connecting more with that energy, with animals, birds, four-legged creatures, cats, coyotes, raccoons, owls, all of these creatures that are up here in the mountains. It happens seasonally. Last summer, I had the same experience. I was feeling inspired and invigorated by hearing the sounds of Mother Nature outside, and seeing, the beauty, the flowers and everything in full bloom. So when the winter months come, everything starts, going more inward. The animals begin to hibernate. We don't see any signs. Creatures, the blue jays and the owls will still hear, but there's not that activity that we get during the summer months, where everything is full energetic force. So I tend not to connect with animal energy during the winter months for that very reason, because I don't feel that influence strongly out there. I know it's there, but I don't feel it influencing me in the way that it is now during the spring, summer months. So in this little chat here that I have, I'm going to be showcasing the decks that I have that are animal and nature influenced, and I'm going to combine two other decks that aren't directly heavily influenced by nature or animal, but their environment. In these two particular decks, I feel can work well with some of these other decks I'm going to be showing you that are fully nature and animal inspired. So I have a list here of the few decks that I have here, and this is going to be it. The WildWood Tarot will more or less cap what I need to work with animal energy and connecting with nature and the different seasonal cycles that we go through. So I think that's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I think that's about 5 decks that I have that are fully inspired through animals and Mother Nature. So, as I mentioned, I just got the WildWood Tarot, so I visually looked through the deck, and it's beautiful. The timing is right for me to work with this deck. The images are connecting very strongly to me. I'm smiling because there's one particular card where the creature is looking at me, and it looks pretty much like my my animal companion spirit, just the look on the face. So anyhow, I'm going to be going through this deck in the next few days and start introducing it into my practice. So I'm really excited about it. So here's the WildWood Tarot. And I forgot to mention, earlier in June, I think a few weeks ago, was the 10th anniversary of the release of the WildWood Tarot. Now it's gone through, I think this is the second edition I have, second or third edition, depending on where you live. I think there were different, there's one edition that was slightly different, I think in the UK. And then there's the original, which I think was called the Greenwood Tarot, where the theme is pretty much the same, but from what I was looking at and reading briefly about that deck, the artwork is completely different. And it was done by another illustrator. And looking at those paintings and illustrations for the Greenwood Tarot, it's very primal. It's very it gets to the core of how the human energy works. It's very primal. It's very earthy. I feel some of the images that I saw here with Will Worthington. His images are heavily detailed and illustrated, and the colors are very strong. And this artist did a beautiful job just looking at these images right here in front of me. So I'm happy the time was right, and that I can embrace this deck into my practice. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to do a deck review of this because there's so many reviews of the WildWood Tarot. But what I will do is, because I have this separated in such a way so that when I go to the deck, I'm going to work it in this manner. So I'll just show a few cards. Here, there we go. So we have the Shaman, the Seer. Okay, so this is from the Major Arcana. Green Woman, could be the Empress, the Green Man, the Emperor. And then what's on the cover of the WildWood Tarot box is the Ancestor. Sorry, that shook. Spirit just jumped on the table. So just some of the illustrations that are in this deck. What I want to do is I want to, and this is how I work with my decks overall, I like the decks that I have right now to be some decks that I can cross over and work with. Like they're very complementary of each other. So the WildWood Tarot is the basis of the decks I'm going to be working with. So with the WildWood Tarot, this is the card that reminds me of my familiar spirit. If you can, it's going to focus. Anyhow, you could take a look online to see the imagery of this deck. So the decks I'm going to work with in time over the summer with the WildWood Tarot is I'm going to work with the Witch's Wisdom. Now the imagery in the Witch's Wisdom, I'll show here. Okay, here's the WildWood Tarot. Okay, so very bright and vibrant colors. But here's the Witch's Wisdom. So the colors have the same, not the same intensity, but there's something very special when I was looking at this deck, the Witch's Wisdom, to see how it can relate energy-wise. And there's a cross message with the Witch's Wisdom because it is connecting fully with nature. So here's another. It's the Wheel of Life, which came up in my summer solstice reading. To be mindful of our seasons and the energy that it has to influence with. Here's the Shaman. Okay, so I'm just going to show these very quickly so you can get a good sense. The color, the energy. Now, the Witch's Wisdom has human depiction, not a lot, and also nature, where there's like no animals, but the background is like of a forest or of the ocean. So let me see. Here's a good example. Okay. So what I want to do is, okay, these aren't the same, but just to kind of show the scene. The energy works very nicely. So it'll be the Witch's Wisdom that I'll be working with. Do this. So again, these are all random, just the energy so you could see. Not a good comparison, but. So it'll be this deck, Witch's Wisdom. That I will be connecting with for the WildWood Tarot. The other deck I have here is, this will be an honorable mention. It is not animal influenced entirely, but it connects with the forces of nature and using those powers that they have to strengthen who we are, self-empower ourselves, and use that energy into our practice. So this is the Witch's Oracle by Sally Morningstar. So here the imagery, the vibrancy of the colors, they work good, and they just happen to be almost the same, no, not quite the same size. The Witch's Oracle is slightly taller, but they have the borders around, and I don't think they're distracting. I'm not going to get into a conversation about trimming and modifying the deck. I like the borders on this, and it works good for me. I just want to show the energy. Okay, so this is the Witch's Oracle. And this works, this is a perfect deck because I do use this deck when I do my, my seasonal readings. So I incorporate this deck with the Witch's Wisdom for my seasonal readings. And now the WildWood Tarot is going to be part of that process. So I'm really happy to welcome that deck into my readings. So I will be working with, for the WildWood Tarot, I'll be working with the Witch's Wisdom. Okay, here's another card. It's the Witch's Wisdom. And I'll show this card here. Just because of their energy. The energy is very similar. It's a little bit more organic. It's a little bit more steadfast, more focused, more direct. And then the Witch's Oracle. So the Witch's Oracle, Witch's Wisdom are the two decks I'm going to complement with the WildWood Tarot. Okay, so other decks I have. Okay, I'm going to put this here. I have an order for all of this, so bear with me. I have the Oak, Ash, and Thorn. That came out late last year. And the creators, Stephanie Burrows and Adam Ohlers, especially Stephanie Burrows, I was watching a interview that she was doing on YouTube, and she was just, bless her heart, she was just overwhelmed by how well receptive this deck that she created has been for everyone, and with good reason. It is a beautiful deck. It's really hard to find a good nature-oriented deck, animal-inspired deck that really rings, the core essence of what the spirit of an animal has to share with everyone, and also the environment that it's in. So here is the Oak, Ash, and Thorn. But here is the thing. This is one of the decks I will be working with for the summer. This is one deck that I won't be working with for the WildWood Tarot, just because of the energy. This is a very organic deck. Okay, so I'm going to show here contrast. Okay, completely different. Okay, now I have a human in here. I'm trying to, yeah, most of them major arcanas. Okay, completely different. Completely different energies. I could possibly work with it, but as I go through, as I look at this deck here, the Oak, Ash, and Thorn, I'm going to bring here. You can see what I mean. The energy is just a little bit different. So I rather connect the WildWood Tarot, where it deals with a little bit more of the pagan aspect of connecting to the seasons and the animals that are out there. So I feel the Witch's Oracle and Witch's Wisdom works very good together. This deck with the Oak, Ash, and Thorn, the deck that I will combine with this is going to be the Animal Spirit Oracle. And this is the card that I pulled yesterday. Okay, so this deck's been out for a while, I think about three years already. And this is by Kim Kranz. So I think maybe I'm just leaning because of the borders. But again, Kim's work is very organic and very free flowing. Okay, so here's another one from the animal spirit. There you go. So you could see here, this will work well. The oak, ash, and thorn, and this, and the animal spirit. So I'll just leave this up for reference. So you could see there's a little bit more of a natural feel with the animal spirit oracle and the oak, ash, and thorn. So that will be the two decks that I will connect with for my readings. So that is here, oak, ash, and thorn. And then the WildWood Tarot, or I'm sorry, the Animal Spirit Oracle. And this was actually my first animal-centric deck because I wanted to find not a tarot deck, and that's why around the time that I got the Animal Spirit Oracle, I did see the WildWood Tarot, but I wanted to specifically work with just animal energy. I didn't want to see a storyline. I just want something like this so that if I was to pull a card, I could get more detailed information into a reading without pulling like the WildWood Tarot and there it's a little bit more complex. This works very nicely for me. So sometimes I feel like it's not quite speaking to me, but again, I have to attribute that to our seasons because now this deck, the Animal Spirit Oracle, is very strong. So it comes out of hibernation, and I get to put it to use and recharge it during this time of the year. Okay, so with the oak, ash, and thorn, it's going to be the Animal Spirit Oracle, and I'm going to try and see if I could get this to work. But once I read through this deck and the WildWood Tarot, I will see I would get a better sense if I feel this is going to connect more with the oak, ash, and thorn. It's just the oak, ash, and thorn is a very, very innocent looking deck. And then here we have a mature deck of energy here. So that's what I'm saying. This is going to be hard to put these two together, but maybe I can make it work. Colors are beautiful. So, okay, so let me make sure I got this here in order. Yes. Okay. So oak, ash, and thorn, Animal Spirit Oracle will be primarily the deck that I'm going to connect with for that, and potentially the WildWood Tarot. Now, the other deck I have that I have not mentioned, and let me shift this around for space, is the Nature Spirit Tarot. This is by Jean Herzel. Now, the version that I have here is her original self-published deck. And this version that I have isn't in print anymore. She had an extra copy, and I put in a request to see if she did have any extra decks of these, and she did. So this is by Jean Herzel, and this is the Nature Spirit. Okay, the decks are huge. Sorry, my hand's so much. This is how big it is. It is large. There you go. If I was to do it like this, I could get from my thumb to my forefinger. I think this is like 6x4. It's about postcard size. Okay, so there is a new edition that came out. The Nature Spirit Tarot came out earlier this year. I cannot remember the publisher, but if you do a search right now, it's a US published deck. They did a smaller version of this deck, and here, whoops, and the back's here. It's beautiful. So you could do reversals. So there's a smaller version, and I'm thinking potentially about getting that at some point, because I can do a reading with this, but the table that I work with, that I do my tarot readings on, it's a good size. It's like 3x4 or something like that, probably a little bit longer. So I can get large cards like this and do a large spread, but I have to clear the entire table. Oops. I have to clear the entire table to make room for a deck this size. So as you can see, it's the major arcana. So I think right off the bat, you could see that this won't work too well. And the energy that is being depicted in the Nature Spirit Tarot is fully connecting with the meaning of the animal that's being portrayed, of the environment. And the beauty of this deck too is in Jean's guidebook. And as you notice here, we have the opposite realms of light and dark, and the spiritual side of what the owl, of what the owl represents for intuition. It focuses on the floral influence. We have the pine cones, I believe, here. Pine cones is of fertility and abundance. Here's the Empress. So you could see what I'm focusing here on with this deck. This deck I can connect with fully on its own. Here's an example of, this is wands, and that's amethyst here, and that represents the force of the wands. And here, and it tends to be in the pip depiction. So we could see the amethyst there being used as wands, how it's placed. And then again, in the guidebook, Jean Herzel goes into the explanation of some of the insects that we see here. Just a beautiful deck. This one I covet very well, because it's very unique. So with that deck, and this is probably a no-brainer, I just randomly pulled this card. I will work with the Animal Spirit Oracle. So this is a tarot deck, and because of the way the images are depicted, I feel I can get some guidance. Oops. I could get more guidance through the Animal Spirit Oracle by Kim Krans. Coloration's different. This is very vibrant, but it is still very heavily nature-centric. So you could see what I'm saying here, how it feels, how it connects. So these two decks, the Nature Spirit Tarot and the Animal Spirit Oracle, will be the two decks that I will work with. So I'm doing this because, as I mentioned, I want to work with decks, since I don't have a lot of animal nature inspired decks. I want to see how I can get them to communicate. and see which decks work better with their energies versus other decks. Okay, so that was a Nature Spirit Tarot. Okay, and then lastly, here we go, is The Forest of Enchantment by Lunaea Weatherstone. I got this copy 2 years ago when it first came out. Now, what's different with this deck, I'll show you the box here. Hi, Spirit. So the difference with this deck is, yes, it has animals on it, but the journey of the forest, like the WildWood Tarot and the forest, the WildWood and the forest deals with our inner subconscious, how things manifest and transform from our outer realm into our inner realm, and how and the shifts and the changes and the hardships and the joy that we all go through in the forest and in the wildwood. So this deck, The Forest of Enchantment, has one of the most beautiful backs that I've seen. This is the back of it. So the Forest of Enchantment deals more in the realm of the fairy tale and the influences that you will meet. These are the aces here. And here, this is Ace of Vision. And I believe this is, let me see here if I got the order. Visions, I believe, is water. This is Wands. Move my finger out of the way so you can see. So Ace of Spells. Spells is the action, so that is of Wands. And then the Visions is of the emotions. Beautiful here. Challenges of air. So we have the bird. Or I should say the bird. It's like a white raven. No offense. White raven, not bird. And then boons. So I'll just show this. I have a review of this. I'm not going to go through the entire deck if you want to look at my playlist. So the journey here is the experience again of the fool, of the naive, open-minded self, to explore different aspects of connecting to who they are. So the realm is, again, in the forest, and the entities, the creatures, the forces that we meet along the way, and how magical they can be and how they can be of guides. So this holds a different energy. I could maybe make this work. You let me know what you think. If you've gotten this far in the video, let me know what you think. If some of these cards can play together. I'm just going to hold. Because here, obviously, it's borderless. But we're still in that forest. We're still in the woods. But the representation from the wildwood is more of metamorphic humans and creatures that are part human, part animal, which is who we are. But here, the backdrop is almost Hobbit-like. very fairy tale-ish. So with that being said, the Forest of Enchantment, I may read by itself, but I will potentially, this is the honorable mention, Forest of Enchantment, to make it work with the WildWood Tarot because of the environment that both of these decks are in. They're dealing with the woods. They're dealing with entities that we may be amused by or we may be in fear of. But these are two different depictions of those experiences. So that's how I'm going to try and work with these decks. I want to use the WildWood Tarot as the basis for my animal nature-inspired decks I want to work with this summer, and see where all these decks can communicate with each other, and see where they can lead me, because there's different stories, as I mentioned, with some of these decks. So some will work well together, some won't. So we will see. But let me know what you think. If you have decks that you combine specifically with nature and animal influences, let me know. Or what you think with what I've shown you so far, what you think could be good combinations. If there's something that I may have missed that you may have seen, that would be greatly appreciated. So I have the websites of all of these decks, with the exception of, I think, one or two where there's just the Amazon link, if you want to get some more information about that. I have reviews of, I think, all of these decks, with the exception of Witch's Wisdom. I can't recall if I did that. Oak, Ash, and Thorn, I know I did not do a review, but I have Forest of Enchantment. I have the Nature Spirit Tarot on review on my channel, so you can look at those. And I'm not going to, again, as I mentioned, I'm not going to do the WildWood Tarot review because this deck is 10 years old and there's plenty of different perspectives on it. So for me, this is going to be a wonderful journey. I'm looking forward to this because it appears with the WildWood Tarot, this is a deck that I can work seasonally, year-round, as opposed to some of the other decks where I feel once winter, fall starts coming in, I'll probably start closing out the Forest of Enchantment, the Nature Spirit deck, potentially Oak, Ash, and Thorn. I have to see, and just focus on the WildWood Tarot. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. I just want to share this very quickly to get a different perspective of some of the decks here and how they can work together in different environments, the artwork, the meanings between two different decks, and see how they can connect. So thank you again for watching, and I will be back. If you have any questions, of course, or comments, leave them below, and all the information to reach me is included in the description. So I look forward to hearing from you, and let me know what you think about the combinations that I shared with you. I will talk to you soon.